President Trump says he has signed the paperwork to make it official.
I just signed his document and all of the papers, and Steve Myron is now on.
A New York judge has dismissed terrorism charges against Luigi Mangione, the man accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This, as Mangione appears in New York City court for a status hearing. Eric Shawn has the latest from New York City.
The morning starts with a big win for Luigi Mangione. The state terrorism charges against him dismissed. This as Mangione arrived here in court in shackles and prison garb. Did not say anything when he came into court, but man, are his supporters loud outside court, just across the street from Manhattan criminal court building, shouting how many people have to die as they are railing against the healthcare industry. Many of the supporters dressed in green for the character Luigi in the game Super Mario Brothers. The hearing could decide what the jury will eventually learn at his murder trial. You know, Mangione accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last December.
The Senate Judiciary Committee holding a hearing today with FBI Director Kash Patel on oversight regarding the Bureau. Director Patel opening his remarks by discussing the fatal shooting of political commentator Charlie Kirk, saying they were able to identify the 22-year-old suspect and apprehend him. Patel gave special thanks to the American people.
The mission of the FBI is for them and with them and by, with, and through them. And it's that mission and that ethos that I brought to this investigation and so many others, and that's why that suspect is in custody. We cannot do our job without the American public and credible reporting in the media, and that's why Tyler Robinson is in custody today.
Women's rights advocate Riley Gaines says the Charlie Kirk tragedy has given courage to others.
I believe his death, again, it has inspired 10,000, if not more, Charlie Kirks across the nation to hopefully engage in the same format and debate style and intellect and critical thinking that he did, which is merely civil discourse and the truth. We will pick up the microphone where Charlie left it, and I think in doing that, it's giving courage to others.
The Southern Baptist Convention has issued a statement of lament and a call for justice after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Steve Jordahl has more.
The statement, signed by hundreds of Southern Baptist pastors and members, says, quote, political violence is a grave sin and it represents a threat to our nation and its government. It calls for Southern Baptists and all Christian brothers and sisters to recommit ourselves to the defense of life, liberty, and biblical morality in our nation. SBC President Clint Presley says, like the rest of the country, Southern Baptists were shocked at the assassination.
So many young people being influenced by Charlie Kirk, and then, of course, having the assassination be so public and so gruesome.
He says, like Kirk, the SBC knows the answer to the crisis the world is facing lies in the Word of God.
God has put in us things we understand to be right and to be wrong, whether people are Christians or not. There is a real sense of needing to bring back some sense of normalcy. Some sense of decency.
Presley says the letter is meant to be a starting point where Southern Baptists can carry on the work Kirk started.
A clear understanding of what the gospel calls us to do and believe and how we are to act and how we are to respond, especially to national tragedies like what is before us.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
And finally, a chance of flooding in the mid-Atlantic and heavy rain across much of the U.S.
A lingering coastal low is bringing gusty winds, high surf, and the risk for flooding for parts of the mid-Atlantic states. Also, the chance of strong to severe thunderstorms with pockets of heavy rainfall for the northern and central plains. Southern California seeing the risk of heavy rain with a system offshore combined with the remnants of a tropical system in the Pacific, and above-average temperatures spreading across much of the U.S. this week. I'm Janice Dean, Fox News.
American Family News is available online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Every day, AFA offers biblical insight on issues that others aren't willing to touch in the hopes that you'll become a world changer. That's why we're offering an in-depth worldview training course called Activate. 13 different professors teaching 18 sessions, all available online, including a printed workbook to help you apply what you've learned and 1-year access to AFA streaming content to give you even more resources. Find out more about Activate and sign up today at activate.afa.net. We inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We quip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. Thank you so much for joining today. And wow, Roy Hobbs, Robert Redford is dead today. Interesting way to start the program today. Liberal guy, very liberal guy. But as I just posted on social media, I would fight and die for his right to say some of the crazy things he said. Still one of my favorite actors ever. I loved Robert Redford's acting. I thought, definitely Roy Hobbs in The Natural, probably my favorite character of all of his movies. Definitely my favorite moment in all of his movies was the jump off the cliff, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. I was crazy enough to replicate that as best I could in college with a buddy of mine, 90-foot jump off of Hell's Gate at Possum Kingdom. And we even did the same thing as Butch and Sundance, when they grab the saddlebag together and so they'll go off at the same time off the cliff. We did that, And anyway, probably shouldn't have shared that bit of stupidity in my youth. Like George Bush said, when I was young and stupid, I was young and stupid. Anyway, best line, though, my favorite Robert Redford line out of any movie, all the amazing movies that he did, was The Candidate, where he ran for the Senate. Most people don't even know that movie from him. It wasn't his... certainly people my age anyway, and younger have no idea. But he ends up winning this Senate race in the movie, and at the very end, everybody's celebrating. It's the election night. I could relate to this feeling. And he says to the consultant, campaign manager guy, I can't remember what his exact role was, but last line of the movie, what do we do now? What do we do now? Oh, how many candidates have felt that after winning an election? You go through, you pour your heart into the race. You do everything for a year, 2 years, however long that campaign happens to be. And then election night, you find out you won, and you're like, uh-oh, what do I do now? Been there, done that. And, so anyway, rest in peace, Robert Redford. What a great career. So many good movies. And, some of my favorites for sure. I might have to break out a couple of those and watch them over the next few days. I don't know that I've ever done that before. Brought attention to a Hollywood star that had passed away, but that one just struck me. Too many of those. There's too. Most of us have had those movie moments where it just stuck with us. It got like became part of our psyche. Kind of often too often our values, right? Like Hollywood's really good at that. At having you sit down and 2 hours later, the drama, the music, the story, the shock of whatever moment in the movie, and then boom, you just absolutely have a new value, and you get up 2 hours later and it's changed the way you think about some things. Most often, for most of Hollywood for the last 40 years, in a bad way, right? It's taught us values that shouldn't be taught, but nonetheless, some of mine with him, definitely that end of The Candidate. What do we do now? Certainly the Roy Hobbs, The Natural movie, one of my favorites. Even to this day, that music at the end, the Texas Rangers used it every time anybody hit a home run. That same music would play. So, and then the Sting. Oh man, how can you forget the Sting? That was definitely one of his best roles ever. In fact, think about that. 2 of the 3 movies I've mentioned, he and Paul Newman together. So what a pair. What a pair. Okay. All right. Enough about Hollywood. Maybe the appropriate response to all of that is the what do we do now? And what do we do now specifically with regard to not only the Charlie Kirk assassination, but also the murder of that young gal on the train, the response that is happening right now across the nation. There's a massive, just massive harvest that is coming. Not coming, it's here. You look at these candlelight vigils and the massive response, even at church yesterday or day before yesterday. We're hearing that it was the largest attendance of any day of the year so far, other than Easter, and people are hungry. And I don't think this is going to be a fad thing. I mean, there'll be some of that, but I think there's going to be millions, tens of millions, perhaps, that have this has been an epiphany moment for them that will be with them the rest of their life, and not just be something they remember where they were when they found out about it, that sort of thing, but something that genuinely causes a shift in their life. I believe this is a seismic shift in the culture, and it is a massive shift for people out there that are searching. They're searching for answers. They're now questioning. They're actually questioning everything they believed. They're questioning, especially those on the left. They're having to pause and go, wait a minute, what's going on here? I thought I was for free speech. I thought I was for people being able to debate and have that. Why are people celebrating the death of this young 31-year-old father and husband, the murder of this guy, for simply saying what he believes and defending it, actually being ready to answer? This is a 1 Peter 3:15 guy that was ready to answer. Every time somebody had a question about an issue, he had a biblical application answer. Every time he was asked these questions on these college campuses, his answers came back to the Bible. That's literally discipleship. That's what that is. He was discipling. He was making disciples. He was going forth. He was living out the gospel, going forth and making disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey everything God had commanded. And so he's martyred for that, and it's caused people to go, wait a minute. What kind of world are we living in? I thought we lived in a world where, like I said, Robert Redford could be liberal and say whatever he wanted, and I would fight and die for his right to do that. I would fight and die for his free speech. Unlike Pam Bondi, I don't believe that what someone says that I may disagree with or even think is disgusting should be considered quote-unquote hate speech. What is hate speech? Who gets to decide what is hate speech? Who gets to decide what's allowed and what's not? Now, definitely there's a delineation here. There's a distinction for inciting violence, for actually encouraging someone to murder other people. There's a distinction for calling people to that action. There's got to be a line somewhere in there, and that's could be a little fuzzy. We have to figure out exactly where that line is. But the idea that you're going to say that someone being hateful, even someone that's dancing on Charlie's grave right now, even someone that's celebrating the murder of a 31-year-old man, I don't believe you should lock someone up for that. I don't believe you prosecute hate speech. I think that is anti-American, anti-biblical. I mean, even the Bible provides for an arena of ideas where Christians do not convert other people at the sword. We don't put people in jail for saying something that we disagree with or think is disgusting or awful. We don't even put somebody in jail for saying something that we think is blasphemous. That is not our way. And so I think Pam Bondi has made a huge mistake here. I think she's somewhat walking it back. She's trying to now draw that line between inciting violence but you got to realize that what the reason we have a murdered Charlie Kirk right now is because the left defined hate speech as anything that was against what they believed, and therefore it was not only hate speech, it was violence. They're the ones that set up this idea of criminalizing hate speech, of criminalizing speech, of criminalizing defining hate speech as anything that they disagreed with, and then criminalizing it and actually encouraging violence to stop that speech because they said that speech was violence. You following me here? In other words, what the left has done, what Marxism always does, is it tries to silence the opposition, and the way that they've set that up for the last 20 years and on the college campuses, and then lived it out over the last 5 years because they had a president and an administration that was willing to use the weaponization of our government agencies to shut down speech that they disagreed with. the way that they did that was first they had to redefine free speech as hate speech. You don't need a constitutional amendment to protect love speech. Okay, you don't need a constitutional amendment to protect people coming together and singing Kumbaya and loving on each other. That's going to happen naturally, and it's going to be very rare that anybody's against that. The constitutional amendment to protect free speech is specifically to defend and protect someone being able to say something that's not popular, to being able to say something that other people will think is disgusting, and specifically to be able to say something against what is popular or even politically powerful at the time. In other words, say something against those in power. And so to actually say that we're going to now go after people that are spewing hate or hate speech is the antithesis of what we should be saying. What we should be saying in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, what we should be saying is we're not going to stop free speech or even hate speech. We're going to actually encourage a dialogue. So if you say something hateful, and listen, I'm saying this as someone who has death threats right now, who is sitting at the Patriot Academy campus, that people are calling out. They've been doing this for they started at about a week before Charlie was murdered. About 7 days before, it might have been 10 days before Charlie was murdered, we started getting all kinds of messages online saying that Patriot Academy is a Nazi camp, Nazi youth, Hitler this, Nazi that, fascist this, fascist that, burn it down, kill them all, they're murderable, pictures of empty graves, and people saying that this is the safe space for Nazis. So in other words, they're saying, because we're Nazis, we need to be killed. Well, we're not Nazis. That's an absolute lie. But first they have to lie about us and call us Nazis, just like they did Charlie and all of our other people that we work with. And then they start saying it's okay to kill a Nazi because wouldn't you kill Hitler if you had the chance and you could save all those lives? That's how they created this situation. We cannot do the same. Don't take the bait of Satan. Don't take the bait that says now it's our turn. We have power, so we're going to silence you. We're going to prevent people from saying mean things or hateful things. Can't do that. That is not the answer. More civil discourse. When someone says something stupid or hateful or disgusting or awful, we don't respond by saying we're going to lock you up. Now we do. There are consequences. Absolutely. I just did an interview with Lauren Boebert that air on Wall Builders later this week or next week, and that was exactly what we were talking about. Was of course there's consequences for your free speech. If you say things that are stupid and ugly and awful and terrible, and it shows your lack of character and it shows you to be a disgusting person, then absolutely your employer has the right to fire you. Absolutely, if I'm the one you're saying it about, I have the right to point out that you said it and point out that you should not be saying that, and that in fact it should be, there should be consequences for you saying it. Like maybe losing your job, or maybe being, not having as much of a voice. That is not censorship. Censorship is when government outlaws you from being able to say it. If you can get the platform, if you can get a platform out there to spew your whatever, then by all means, that's your right to do that. That is freedom of speech, whether it's hate speech, love speech, or whatever else. But there are consequences for your speech. Being shamed, being shunned by society is absolutely okay and should be done. We should be doing that. But the idea that we're going to criminalize it, we're going to put you in jail for it? No, not that way. No, don't go there, folks. Don't take the bait of Satan. More free speech, more civil discourse. Civil discourse, of course. We shouldn't be saying, everybody murder that person because they are saying things I don't agree with. That's awful. What we should be saying is, how'd you come to that conclusion? What caused you to end up believing that? We should be genuinely curious about what the other person believes. And then we should engage in that conversation and that civil discourse. That's exactly what Charlie Kirk was doing on the campuses. And it's what you and I need to be doing every day in the conversations that we have the opportunity to have with people. Got to take a quick break. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. The phone number is 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840.
You, however, have followed my teaching, my conduct. my aim in life, my faith, my patience, my love, my steadfastness. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Apostle Paul penned his second epistle to Timothy, now an elder in the church at Ephesus, in about 64 or 65 AD, while imprisoned in Rome, awaiting his imminent execution under Nero. In warning Timothy about the coming perilous times, marked by the increased anti-Christian persecution in the Roman Empire in 64 AD, Paul directed Timothy to his speech and his feet. In speech, Paul gave Timothy priceless biblical instruction. In feet, Paul left Timothy a legacy of lifestyle. Christ following demands consistency between speech and feet.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
How about this? Some actual good news on the healthcare front, even as costs just keep skyrocketing. So if you're 65 or older, MediShare now offers MediShare 65 Plus. Call them. You can talk to them about this. A lot of people are taking advantage of this now because even if you have Medicare Parts A and B, you know there are out-of-pocket things, deductibles and copays that just keep going up. And the whole point is to help you by giving you a low, consistent monthly payment that fills in the gaps. In fact, I can tell you how much MediShare 65 Plus is. For example, it's $99 a month up to age 75. It keeps costs under control. That helps with peace of mind. MediShare is trusted, too. It's been around for 30 years, and it's a community of people who help each other. Business owners, retirees, pastors, teachers. People love being part of it. Here's the number you can call now. They are easy to talk to. Call 833-45-BIBLE. That's 833-45-BIBLE. 833-45-BIBLE.
Hey, my name is Wesley Wildmon.
And I'm Walker Wildmon.
And we're brothers, and our family have been leading tours to the land of the Bible for more than 30 years.
Coming up in March of 2026, we would love for you to join us for something very special, a Footsteps of Paul tour, a journey through Greece.
We'll walk exactly where the Apostle Paul walked, through Athens, ancient Corinth, Philippi, and Thessalonica.
You'll enjoy unforgettable experiences and meaningful fellowship with believers and with Wesley and Walker.
And we'll eat well, laugh a lot, and yes, eat well again. And most importantly, we will grow in our faith as the Bible comes alive before your eyes. You'll get to see the very things that we read about or that your pastor talks about in church.
The Footsteps of Paul tour is March 17th through the 24th, 2026.
Register today at wildmangroup.com.
That's wildmangroup.com. We can't wait to see you there.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with me. Just talking about the life of Robert Redford and some of our favorite movies that he put out. Don't have to agree with somebody politically to enjoy their art, their science, their business, their sandwiches. They might even just make a really good sandwich. Now, I have to admit, I try not to patronize the businesses that are giving a lot of money to radically left organizations that are undermining and destroying America. So that's one reason, as delicious as it is, I have to admit that, because I love crazy flavors. I won't eat Ben and Jerry's. I just won't do it because they're crazy and they radical, crazy out there leftists. And so you could say, we should be purist and we should never, ever, ever drink a cup of Starbucks coffee or go to a movie that in any way has an actor in it that has said leftist crazy things. And I just can't go there. I can't do the whole completely purist thing. I do the best I can. Like, I try really hard not to give any money to Starbucks. And I'm a coffee-aholic, okay? I'm a coffee snob. I like good coffee. I love, and Starbucks is not the best coffee. It's actually not, it's okay. It's mediocre. Honestly, Caribou Coffee, Dutch Brothers. I love Patriot Brew. That's the best coffee on the planet. That's, of course, at patriotacademy.com or patriotbrew.com. We make the best coffee ever. But my point is, if I'm stuck in some city and I'm traveling out there and I haven't had my coffee for the day, and the only coffee I can find is Starbucks, I will admit my sin to you right now on the air. Yes, once in a while, I drink Starbucks. It's out of desperation, folks. It's like, would you turn water down if you were in the desert and you were dying of thirst and someone gave you a glass of water that was from some company like, I don't know, Ozarka. Are they woke? I don't even know. Like whichever woke water company is out there, and they gave you a bottle of water from that woke bottle company or water company, would you still drink the water? Of course you would. Of course you would. Okay, so that's me when I'm at the airport and there's no other coffee available. If I buy Starbucks and you see that, or someone takes a picture of it and sends it to you, please, please do not send me hate mail over that, and do not think that I'm, now going to hell and not going to make it to heaven because I drank Starbucks, okay? Can we agree on that? So once in a while. It's very rare. It's very rare. It's not very often. I try to direct my dollars. And because listen, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I tell everybody else to direct their dollars to companies that are supporting them. Don't give money to companies that hate you and that are undermining everything in America. Okay, I say that all the time, and I believe that, and I do my best to redirect my money. But I'm not a purist on it. I get it. You know what? I'm going to admit another sin to you today. This is going to be hard for you to believe. I'm going to admit it, though. I'm going to admit it. I hope nobody's recording. I bought something from Target the other day. I know. It's like, of all places, how? Why, Rick? Why? Why would you go into a Target? They're the worst. These young people today, they're always saying, it's the worst. No, this is truly the worst. But I was desperate. There was something I had to buy, and there was nothing else around, and so I did it. Okay, I admit. Okay, so anyway, my point is, yes, I watch Robert Redford movies. Yes, I watch. Sometimes I go see a movie or I watch a TV show that's a liberal that made it. I love The West Wing. I got to admit, Aaron Sorkin, total liberal, right? But the series West Wing was so masterfully done. Like, there is very few artistic examples of how to make a show that you can enjoy, both the humor, the rhythm, the way he would have those scenes where, Josh and Donna are walking through the White House and they're having a conversation about something, and they go through the door, and then the camera turns around and follows the other whoever, the president or whoever it was, and continues the conversation or moves to the next conversation. Just masterful. Okay, absolutely incredible. Now, one thing I will say about Sorkin, when he did The West Wing, he wasn't so myopic in his liberal views that it became propaganda for only his liberal views. He was actually masterful at giving both sides of the story or the issue. It was actually really cool how he would, and basically this brings us back to our conversation of civil discourse. He actually provided the multiple viewpoints on an issue, and he would have various characters argue that viewpoint. So school choice, there's a whole episode in there where, you got the liberal left-wing teacher unions arguing against allowing parents to take the money and take their kid and go wherever it's best for their kid. They're, of course, against that because they want to indoctrinate and control the education of our children. And then you had the mayor of Washington, D.C. in the show. This is in West Wing, so this is not Bowser. It was a fictitious mayor of Washington, D.C., arguing to Josh Lyman, the policy director in the White House, arguing why school choice should happen and how bad the education is in Washington, D.C., and how money is not the answer, but competition is the answer. And then you had, often it would be Donna or Sam or somebody else in the show that would argue. Somebody would be arguing the liberal side, and then another person would logically argue the conservative side. So anyway, he was masterful at that. I don't know how I got off on this, but my it kind of segues back to our topic that will be our topic for the next few months: civil discourse. We need more civil discourse. We don't silence the opposition. And frankly, I would love to see, conservatives making TV and movies where we make our points, but we also hear the other side's points so that we can counter them. It's propaganda is when you just spew what you believe and what you're for, and you don't tell the other side or give the other side an opportunity to say what they believe. And if you step back for a second, this is where we messed up big time in the church. We didn't teach apologetics. And you can't teach apologetics without knowing what the other side's position is. In other words, you can't be ready to give an answer if you don't know what the question is. So if you're raising your kids and you're teaching in your church only what your view is in a dogmatic perspective, and you're not showing what the other side will say about that, then you're not preparing your kids to give an answer to those things. One of the reasons I love Ken Ham, and I love Answers in Genesis and the Ark and going out there and seeing the Ark and going through the Creation Museum, is because Ken has designed all of that and created all that so that you can be ready to give an answer, just like 1 Peter 3:15 says. He's teaching you, he's showing you what the other side says and then showing you what the answer is. That's what we need to be doing more of. That's what we do at Patriot Academy. That's why when we teach the LIFT principles, limited government, individual liberties, free enterprise, timeless truths, we have to show why limited government and a specific design in the Constitution to only give power to government for the things that the people want to give to them, why that actually works. Show what the left would say, show what liberals would say about why government should be doing everything and be the answer to everything, and then show why that fails. Same with environmentalism. You have to show why the worship of the creation instead of the creator doesn't work. And you have to show why the other side's going to argue that government should control the land, that government should tell you where to build your house or how much of your property can be covered in this whole impervious cover thing. You've got to make their argument. You got to show what their argument is for why they want to do that, and then show why it's wrong. Then you have to be ready to answer why that's wrong, why that science is wrong, why it doesn't get the result that they want. Take this whole global warming, global freezing, climate change. Why did they have to go from the world's going to freeze to the world's going to burn to now it's just temperatures are going to change? Why did they change their terminology to climate change? Because climate change, of course, is happening. Of course, there's actual fluctuations in the temperature. It's called seasons. It's also called just the natural progression and way that God designed this thing to work. And in the past, when they would say global warming, and then all of a sudden you find out sometimes it's not warming, and you could show that science to them, and it would prove them wrong. So they were smart. They changed their terminology to there's just climate change. And because of climate change, we need to take over the earth and take all of your money and spend that money doing all these things that will stop the climate change somehow. So you have to show their arguments and what it is that they're actually hoping to cause or have happen, and then show why it won't actually work. Or why even if they accomplished everything they want to do with these trillions of dollars that they're going to take from you and me and everybody else, even if you do everything they want you to do, the result is either the opposite of what they're saying, or even if they get the result that they want, it isn't worth it. So you have to show that there's a cost-benefit analysis. You have to show why Andrew Cuomo was wrong when he said, if it saves one life, it's worth it. No, that's actually kind of a stupid statement. That's actually a really bad policy. That's a really bad way to govern. If you take the philosophy that if it saves one life, it's worth it, you're kind of a moron, honestly. Because now what you're really saying in this blanket, pithy, foolish statement, if it saves one life, it's worth it. What you're really saying is if I kill 10,000 other people to save that one life, it's worth it. No, it's not. What you're saying is if I kill the economy and I make it where everything costs more money and people can't afford to eat healthy, so they're going to die earlier, or they can't afford to provide for their family, or I'm going to shut the economy down and cause millions of people to die in other nations because of starvation, because of what we did financially to the planet and in terms of food supply and everything else. So you're really kind of saying something that's actually stupid. It's actually a really bad policy. It's actually a murderous policy. You got to be able to show that. So you have to be willing to show what they're saying, show what they think will happen, and then show why it's actually not going to happen. How did I get off on all that? Oh, I know, because we were talking about the fact that too often we don't tell the other side. We don't let the other side speak and then be genuinely curious about why they believe what they believe, and how Aaron Sorkin in West Wing actually did a pretty good job of allowing the different philosophies or positions on the issues to be articulated and then let the viewer decide. Now, he was skewed, of course. The music and everything and the storyline the heroes would typically be the liberal, and they would try to win the day with that. But at least he allowed the other side to be articulated. And so anyway, that brings us back to the whole civil discourse thing. This is going to be the civil rights discussion of the next few weeks and months and years. And so that's why I think Pam Bondi has made a big mistake in what she's saying. She's walking it back a little bit. But this idea that we're going to use the terminology of the left and say hate speech and then we're going to criminalize it, really, really bad idea. Now, we'll have to get specific about what actually is illegal. Are there words that you can say that should be illegal? In other words, unprotected speech. And that's really the right terminology. It shouldn't be hate speech. It should be what we should say is unprotected speech that does not fall under the First Amendment, freedom of speech. Now, people always use because of the law school's training, they always say, yeah, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. Well, actually, you can if there's a fire. So if there's an actual fire, you can shout fire in a crowded theater. And the whole point is that what you don't want to protect is speech that causes actual violence and injury, speech that incites violence. And where do you draw that line? Because I could get up and give a speech on why the left is destroying America and destroying American values and why the idea of criminalizing speech or criminalizing what's the word I'm looking for, assembly and people coming together and protesting and that kind of stuff, why it would be wrong to stop that and that it could lead to the destruction of America. And then some goofball out there, some crazy out there decides that somehow means he should be able to kill the opposition. Well, you can't say that the language of this is going to harm America or destroy the value system in America, you can't say that should be illegal or prevented from being spoken. But yet, if some crazy takes something that I say or that you say and uses it to justify the murder of someone, now what do you do with that? Well, you condemn that action. And the person, if it was me, that said, hey, that person out there their language is dangerous to America and what they're doing could destroy our nation. That's essentially what Joe Biden said about all of us as conservatives, right? So if I say that about the left, that what they're doing could destroy the American value system, which is true, and then some crazy goes out there and kills a leftist commentator or politician, then the first thing I should do if that happens is 100% condemn their actions. 100% say that's wrong. Absolutely no. You don't murder people. You don't kill people because they're saying things that we disagree with and that are even harmful to the culture. Murder and the death of that person is not the answer. Discussion and civil discourse and shaming of evil things is the answer. I don't know if that makes sense. I can't tell if I'm articulating that correctly. But my point is that's where the line should be. And instead, what the left is doing, and there's some on the left that are condemning the murder of Charlie Kirk, but there's an awful lot that are dancing on his grave and saying, yeah, more of this. They're actually putting out lists of people that should also be shot and murdered. That's exactly the wrong thing to do. Now, you will probably remember, if you listen to this program much or if you've taken our courses or you come through any of our courses, we almost always say, whenever we're condemning the actions or speech or policies of others, when we say, man, we got to fight for our freedom, man, we got to get on the front lines, when we use these militaristic terms that everyone has used from the beginning of time to rally the cause, to rally the troops, see, that's a military term, that's just part of our vernacular and has been from the beginning of time. When we do that, at least I try to. You go back and look at my recordings. I often say it's in my canned speeches. We have before us the peaceable means to save our nation and take our nation back. That we don't have to use bullets because we can use ballots. Those are things I've said for 30 years. So we've always couched our fight as a peaceable fight because of our system. Because we have the peaceable means in the Constitution to take our country back and to win our culture back. So it's important to do that. And then if someone misuses our terms and does violence, we should condemn it with every single fiber of our being. So we'll navigate this line between free speech and unprotected speech as we go here. All right, quick break. The phone number 888-589-8840. You're listening to At the Core.
God is at work, and He's calling His people to rise in truth. Truth Rising is a powerful new documentary from Focus on the Family and the Colson Center. See how ordinary Christians choose courage in a culture that needs truth. Watch Truth Rising today and find out how you can become an agent of restoration and hope. Visit truthrising.com today. That's truthrising.com.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's Michael with Bible League International.
Persecuted believers around the world, they're praying for your help today. Pastor Abados faithfully shares the gospel with indigenous tribes in his native Bangladesh, but not without harsh opposition. Recently, following a baptism ceremony, armed radicals tortured Abados and other pastors, but they take to heart what Jesus says in Matthew 5, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you.
Beaten, cast out. It's so easy to hate people that do this to you. I said, no, I love them.
Persecuted believers around the world, they're not asking for your pity. They're praying for the precious Word of God to endure. And at $5 a Bible, will you consider a single gift of $100 for $20 or $1 a day? That's $30 a month, providing 72 Bibles over the next year. Pray about it and call 800-YES-WORD, 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 or give it sendbiblesnow.org, sendbiblesnow.org.
Hey friends, it's Jessica Peck, Dr. Nurse Mama, as your 1-minute parenting coach. How often do you truly unplug when you go on vacation? Ecclesiastes 3:13 reminds us that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Vacations are meant to be a time of rest, renewal, and connection with those we love. But in today's world, it's easy to stay tethered to technology. This week, ask yourself, when was the last time I fully disconnected during time away with my family? Are we using our vacations to recharge physically and spiritually, or are we bringing work and distractions along with us? Unplugging on vacation doesn't just allow you to rest. It opens up space for deeper conversations, unhurried moments, and stronger bonds. What if you made the choice to truly unplug during your next trip, enjoying the gift of time together without distractions? Try it out, and I'll see you on the Dr. Nurse Mama Show here on American Family Radio.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach, with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you're new to the program, kind of bounce back and forth. There's a little bit of a ping pong game going on here. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Walker's with you Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you get Walker on Monday, you get me on Tuesday, you get Walker on Wednesday, you get me on Thursday, you get Walker on Friday. Anyway, be sure and listen every day. It's all about the core issues of our culture and what makes a good society and what destroys a society. And, of course, we're going to advocate for those things that have been proven in history and certainly in the Bible to produce a good culture and a good society. And so that's why I'm talking so much about civil discourse and making sure that we are ready to answer. 1 Peter 3:15, be ready to give an answer. And that means on every issue. That doesn't just mean, Jesus died for our sins and, how to have faith and a salvation message and that sort of thing. It means, okay, how do you become a disciple then after you give your life to Christ? How do you actually live that out? How do I, in my daily life, follow the Bible completely as best I can? We're all going to fall short, of course, but how do I, as best I can, treat my neighbor the way I want to be treated? Raise my family to honor God. How do I create a work environment if I'm an employer or as an employee contribute to that environment in a way that would honor God and be a disciple of Christ? That's what Charlie Kirk was doing every day when he was answering questions on college campuses or as he was partnering with us to take biblical citizenship into as many churches as possible. You know, Charlie and I put about 1 million people through that thing between Turning Point's efforts and what they were doing in churches across the country using our curriculum of biblical citizenship and what we were doing with our 30,000 coaches across the country. And it was pretty amazing how many people went through that thing. And the whole purpose was discipleship. How do you live out your freedom in a biblical way? And that's I think that's the reason that you see such a harvest right now, is that those seeds were planted. God's word does not come back void, and the murder of Charlie Kirk and the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk actually just crystallized for people that what he was standing for, to give his life in that way, to lay down his life for his faith, which is what he was doing. So for people that think he was just out there spewing political positions, they haven't watched any Charlie Kirk videos. But for people that didn't know anything about him that are suddenly watching those videos, they realize, actually, this guy was giving wisdom. He was giving answers. And where did those answers come from? The Bible. Every time. His discipleship and his becoming more and more of a disciple through the teaching of Rob McCoy and Jack Hibbs and these others that were mentoring him was then being replicated in his answers to these kids and then in all of these videos. And I was just thinking last night, I was I'd been saying ever since this happened, I mean, literally Wednesday night, when the murder happened on Wednesday afternoon, that night we were doing a show, and one of the first things I said was, they're trying to silence Charlie Kirk's voice. What they don't realize is it's the voice of truth that they're trying to silence. Charlie Kirk is just a vessel. He's a vessel for the voice of truth. And so by silencing Charlie, they might have silenced his vessel, but the voice of truth is going to multiply. And that was when I put that post out on Thursday that, 1,000 Charlie Kirks and how we don't take the bait of Satan and go into civil war. We double down on civil discourse. We don't respond with violence. We double down on civil discourse and we become, millions of voices out there that are also defending the faith and articulating a biblical position on answering whatever the issue is in life. What I didn't realize at the time when I said that Wednesday night and Thursday, I didn't realize that actually they didn't silence Charlie's voice. They actually amplified Charlie's voice, because his vessel, the voice of truth, is what he was speaking, and his vessel, his actual physical voice, has now been heard by more people in the last 5 or 6 days probably than in the 13 years that he was doing this. Watch what's happening right now. So I think Charlie was getting about 100 million views a month on all the various platforms, all the different videos that were out there. And I haven't seen any numbers. I don't know this for sure, but I think it's pretty obvious if you just look at your social media feed over the last 5 days, 6 days now. No, 5 days. No, today's Tuesday. Yeah, 6 days. The number of people that now have seen a Charlie Kirk video and now have heard his voice, his actual physical voice, proclaim the gospel. Not just the salvation message, but the application of the gospel, actual discipleship, making disciples of all nations. The number of people that have heard the gospel and the application of the Bible to their life and some issue that they're facing in the last 5-6 days is probably 10 times what he was what the number of people that were hearing his voice on a monthly basis, maybe 10 times what had heard his voice for the last 13 months. And if not, for sure in the next few months, that's going to happen. So while they were trying to silence his voice, the voice of truth that he was a vessel for has been multiplied 1,000-fold immediately, just in the videos that are being shared, and his actual physical voice will have far more impact in death than he had in life. Only God can do that. Only God can make that happen. That's what martyrdom is. To become a martyr for the faith, he was murdered for his faith and for the way that his incredible ability to speak that faith and defend that faith. He was murdered for that. That's exactly what a martyr is. So he literally was martyred. And as a result, it amplified his actual voice to a level that I don't think any of us could have ever imagined. Look at the number of people that are watching his video. How many times? I mean, I've had relatives that have reached out to me and said, I didn't know who this Charlie Kirk was. And I've gone down the rabbit hole and I've been watching all these videos of him. Wow. And all of the people, and those are people that frankly believe like we believe. Think of all the people that don't or didn't believe like we believe that now have gone down and watched all those videos. How many of them have given their life to the Lord? I was sitting next to one of the young men that has come to Patriot Academy for the Institute, and he was telling me, just talked to a pastor yesterday, and 50 people gave their life to the Lord Sunday at their church. The churches are being filled up. The arenas that are going to be filled up in the next Sunday at Charlie's memorial service. There's no way we're going to get everybody in the stadium there. I mean, Kara and I are going. I don't know that we'll even be able to get in to the building, and that's happening everywhere. We're going to have a vigil here in our home county tomorrow night or Thursday night of this week. It's happening not just in America, all over the world. So it's totally remarkable. Okay, let's go to the phones. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. First up today is Linda in Texas. Go ahead, Linda. Hang on one second. My software shut down. If you guys could patch Linda through, that'd be great. Hey, Linda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, go for it. You're first up today.
Okay, sir. I just want to tell you, I love this program. If I'm home, got that radio, and I've got other people tuned into this. But anyway, the timeliness of that word in due season. When this happened, I happened to be in 1 John 3, and I got to verse 16. And this is 1 John 3:16, and then think of John 3:16. For God so loved the world. This is what John 3:16 says. This is how we have come to know love. He laid down his life for us. We should also lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. And I thought, and I wrote down here in my Bible, Stephen the martyr, and I wrote Charlie Kirk's name down here. And I just thought we have seen a modern day Stephen with Charlie Kirk, and
Amen.
That's just what I wanted to share. It was just like,
Linda, you're spot on. I mean, that was one of the things I said Wednesday night when it happened. Is just as Stephen was speaking truth, and it caused them to hate him so much that they killed him. In the same way, that's exactly what happened to Charlie. He was speaking truth, and even the gnashing of teeth. Stephen in that scripture talks about them gnashing their teeth. They were so angry. And the leftist in Congress, when Lauren Boebert, who I just interviewed, it'll air later this week or next week on Wall Builders, but Lauren was saying that when she asked for prayer on Wednesday afternoon, because they didn't know yet if Charlie was dead, so they were having a moment of silence, and at the time we were being told he had a pulse, and she said, she asked that they actually pray, not just have a moment of silence, but actually pray for he and his family, and the leftists started yelling, literally gnashing their teeth at the idea of praying for this guy. It just crazy, just incredible. So yeah, and yet he was martyred for those very things that he believed. Okay, let's go to Sherry in Oklahoma. You're up next, Sherry. Go ahead, Sherry.
Hello, I hesitate to even talk about another subject.
Oh, it's okay. I don't mind bouncing all around.
Today. So good and so important.
Thank you.
But back in August, and I usually don't miss your program either. I pay attention and I turn it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Back in August, you got me real excited when you talked about President Trump signing, I guess, an executive order requiring the Department of Commerce to conduct an honest census, another census in which only legal citizens were counted. And that day you said possibly that could be done in as little as 60 days. But Rick, I haven't heard anything else about it. I did a lot of looking. I don't see anything else about it. Do you happen to know the status
That's a
of
great
that?
question, Sherry. Really good question. I do not know off the top of my head what the status of that is. I'll do some homework and try to report back to you on Thursday's program. Because they were, I had been pushing for that since January, as soon as he got in, and had our folks in the White House pushing for it, and I was so thrilled that they, started making some moves on that. But I have not heard anything in the last few weeks. So let me check into that, and I will try and report on Thursday. Thank you for that question, because that's a topic near and dear to my heart, and I would love to see movement on that. So I'm glad you brought that up. Real quick headline I got to go to, because this is just disgusting to me. Judge dismisses 2 most serious murder charges against Luigi Mangione. This is the guy that killed the healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So here you go. This is exactly what I was talking about. If you encourage, if you lessen the crime and if you lessen the punishment for crimes, you're going to get more of that crime. So this guy that murders the little girl on the train, that had been arrested 14 times, this guy, the idea that we close down all of the institutions and put these people on the streets that should not be on the streets murdering our children. It's bad policies that lead to this stuff. And so this judge dismisses these 2 worst charges. First-degree murder is a crime of terrorism. Second-degree murder is an act of terrorism, saying that his murder was not intended to silence or coerce the population. Yes, it was. This was specifically because of certain policies. He was wanting to intimidate other CEOs and other companies. In the same way, this guy that has murdered Charlie Kirk, the whole purpose is to silence conservatives and silence the biblical position against transgenderism in this case, to silence those who would say there is male and female only, and that if you are a male and you think you're a female, or you're a female and you think you're a male, this is a psychological problem. Used to be considered a mental illness, and it should be once again. And so these people that are pushing that and normalizing that are wrong, and that should stop. And we should get back to the basic science of male and female. We should outlaw these surgeries on children, and this encouragement of this stuff. I mean, look at what it has done to a generation. Look at all of the mass murder events of the last few years by transgenders. That was the very question that Charlie was being asked when he was murdered. And we're gonna decriminalize or make it less criminal to kill people for their positions, for their business, This is exactly the wrong direction to go. All right, I'll try to get one more question in here before we run out of time today. Jerome in Texas, go ahead, Jerome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and I really appreciate when you're in. I appreciate whenever. Listen, I just have a question real quick about freedom of speech. Now, I'm definitely, pro-Trump, pro-Charlie. I just want to know, are we violating other people's freedom of speech if we won't let them say blank Charlie Kirk and I wish he was dead or I wish Trump was dead? Are we violating the freedom of speech, or is that going too far?
Well, it depends on what you mean by not letting them say that. In other words, if you own a platform or you employ that person and they say those things, there's certainly consequences for them saying those things. But yes, I would say that using the coercion of government to prevent someone from saying that is going too far. I don't think you silence nasty, ugly, disgusting speech through the power of government. But absolutely, if it's your platform, if you don't have free speech, does not mean that I have to give you my platform to say that. So I think it's a great question, Jerome. It should be. This is what I meant earlier when I said we have to walk through this and figure out where that line is. And so don't let government prevent someone from saying that or jail them for saying that. But absolutely, in the free market, you should have the right to not allow someone to say that on your platform or in your church or on your show or whatever it might be. And as an employer, you absolutely have the right to fire someone if they're that disgusting. And so, yeah, anyway, that's where I would distinguish between those things. Maybe we'll cover it a little bit more on Thursday. We're out of time for today, folks. Thank you so much for participating in the program. Share it with your friends and family, and I'll see you on Thursday. You've been listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.